Okay, let's get started. Our first company for today's webinar is Santana Minerals, trading under the ASX code SMI with a market capitalization of around $350 million. Discovered the most significant single gold deposit in New Zealand in over 4 decades at the Bendigo-Ophir project in Central Otago in New Zealand. Presenting for the company today, we have CEO Mr. Damian Spring. Damian, please take it away.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for having us here this afternoon. I'm going to talk a bit about our discovery here in Central Otago. It's a bit ironic being on the hidden gems. I'm going to take you through, for those who haven't heard about our story before, you'll think you'll be quite amazed, and I expect you'll get a lot out of it. I guess the photo we've got there on our opening slide is of gold dredging in what looks like the Clutha River with the Pisa Mountains in the background. That was on the back of the discovery of gold back in 1860 in Otago, followed up by discovery specifically near our site at a place called Bendigo in 1862. Named Bendigo by a couple of Victorian diggers who came across the ditch to go prospecting, and with hopes of a much larger find. And it's only taken over 160 odd years to make that discovery. Let's go to the next slide. Now, usual disclaimer. Just on the disclaimer, don't need to go back, but we are dual listed now, both on the ASX and the NZX. Thank you, Peter. So, the Bendigo-Ophir Gold Project is principally made up of our discovery at the Rise and Shine deposit, consisting of 2.2 million ounces at a fantastic grade of 2.3. This was a resource update from July this year, which included an indicated resource at the Rise and Shine of almost 1.5 million ounces at a fantastic grade of 2.4 grams per tonne. The rest of the discovery is made up from some satellite pits. They're slightly lower grade, but they are near surface, so we expect to, at some point, be able to convert them in terms of both resource and into mine design of a shallow pit. So we have come in time 60-odd thousand ounces at 1.5, Strex 174,000 ounces at 1.1 in Strex East, for a total of 2.5 million ounces at 2.1 grams per tonne. This is in our exploration permit that extends from the historic town of Bendigo 30 kilometres to the historic gold mining town of Ophir, and we're only really looking in the first 4 odd kilometres of that 30 kilometre strike. We go to the next page. So here we are, and when I'm talking strike, I'm talking about the regional feature of contact between 2 types of schist, TZ3 and TZ4. That extends all the way to the OceanaGold's Macraes gold mine, about 90 kilometres to the southeast. And we have nearby towns of Queenstown, Wanaka and Alexandra, all within about an hour's drive of the location. We're located in a semi-arid part of Otago, about 20 minutes drive north of Cromwell, a town of about 8,000 people, and located on private farmland with agreements in place to mine. If we go to the next slide. And this is just an indication of the area where the discovery is made. In the centre, we have a feature called Battery Hill. This side of that, and we have Raz Ridge, and approximately 150 metres below that is the deposit. So as you can see, it's sheep and beef country, modestly steep, relatively free of vegetation, mostly made up of pasture, and very arid relative to New Zealand. Go to the next slide. And we call it a gold developer's dream. So to the right, towards the top of the picture, we have an arrow given the location of our project in the Dunstan Mountains. We have abundant fresh water in an aquifer approximately 5 kilometres to the west. About 8 kilometres from the project, also to the west, we have a 66 kV substation. 10 kilometres from the project, we have the State Highway 8, sealed highway running from Queenstown up to Christchurch, which runs alongside Lake Dunstan, which is formed by the Clyde Dam, producing 440 megawatts of green hydro energy. And of course, got the Cromwell town located there, population of about 8,000 people, with the international airport located at Queenstown, about an hour's drive from the project. So compared to other gold developments, particularly in Western Australia, we're not going to be a FIFO operation, we're going to be residential. It's not going to be any major camps, and we've got fantastic infrastructure. Go to the next slide. What we have here is a long section looking east down the axis of the Rise and Shine deposit, demonstrating the consistent, thick, high-grade intercepts down the core, starting near surface in the Rise and Shine Valley to the right, going north, down plunge, below the Shepherd's Creek and further afield, 1.7 kilometres to the north, and where we have that intercept there, MDD-066, still with 35 metres at 2.4 grams per tonne and open at depth. Go to the next slide. In April this year, we completed a scoping study and announced it to the market. It was conservatively designed on a price of $16.50 US or 2,500 Aussie an ounce. We determined that throughput of 1.5 million tonnes per annum on a CIL plant, commencing with an open pit with about a 12 million cubic metre pre-strip for a mine life of about 8 years of throughput at a modest strip ratio after that pre-strip of 10:1, and then followed by an underground as the ore body plunges beneath the open pit that would commence at least a couple of years before the open pit feed would wind up, and so that underground operations fully operational by the time the open pit finishes. So all in all, 10 years, producing about 1.1 million ounces. Let's just go to the next slide. And the financial outcomes, again, on a conservative price of 2,500 Aussie, generated an after-tax profit of almost $1 billion Aussie. However, using a spot price at that time, at least, of 3,650, almost doubled that after-tax profit to $1.9 billion. So all in all, the scoping study indicated that 110,000 ounces per annum for 10 years at a very low all-in cost of 12.65 Aussie an ounce, and for a net profit after tax of 1.9. All for a relatively low capex of 250 million Australian, consisting of that capital of the process plant, associated infrastructure, roading, etc., as well as that take into account the working capital required for that pre-strip. So since then, we're well on the way to with our pre-feasibility study, which we are expecting to publish in December quarter this year. Next slide. Now, this slide is really just a prompt to really talk about the key question if you're new to understanding gold mining in New Zealand. Since November last year, we have a new government. It's a coalition government that in March this year introduced a new bill called the Fast Track Approvals Bill. This is a one-stop shop that will enable developers like ourselves to write an application that meets all the requirements of the current environmental acts, including the Resource Management Act, Heritage Act, etc. Meet all the requirements of that in one application, submit it to an expert panel to be determined by the government, and that panel will have 6 months to make a decision on that permit application. So right now we're on track to have our application in by February next year. So if that law is finally passed, as we expect it to in either October or November this year, it's quite possible that we will have our permits this time next year. Go to the next slide. So, of course, we're hurriedly finishing off our baseline studies, of course, our PFS, where that feeds into the assessment of environmental effects. We published that PFS in December quarter. We keep an eye on what the government's doing in terms of that fast track bill. We'll get our application in early next year, and in 6 months' time after that, we can have our permits to commence mining. And next slide. and yet we're still drilling. We are still essentially at this point in time an exploration company turning into a developer. This is the results of a short campaign of 7 drill holes drilling out the high-grade core. We had identified after completing our indicated upgrade that there were potentially some gaps in that high-grade core. So rather than having any doubts about the continuity of that high grade and thickness, these 7 holes that we drilled, 3 of which are shown here in pink, demonstrate that consistent high grade continues. So we start off hole 54, which was drilled now about 2 years ago, 29 metres at 14 grams per tonne. And we've now infilled it with 332 to the right or south, 35 metres at 8.3. Further south, 313 is 31 metres at 7.9 grams. And here we go further north and down plunge at 329 at 35 metres at 5.4. So if you're in the gold space, I'm sure you'll understand that's fantastic results. Next slide. Of course, this is a wrap up now. We did list on New Zealand Stock Exchange at the end of July, and it's just photos of the team ringing the bell. Thank you.
Damian, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We do have a couple of questions come through. So just in relation to the last couple of weeks, you announced a high-grade gold results at Rise and Shine. Can you talk about these results, and can you explain the significance of these?
Yeah, look, I'll just reiterate basically what I said. It was on the back of our July MRE, where we completed an upgrade to our indicated. We identified that around the high-grade core, where our initial maiden indicated resource was published early last year, there was probably some merit in doing some further infill drilling. Those 7 holes were part of that campaign. And the very last one, as coincidence would have, was the highest grade intercept out of that campaign, and it complements that hole 54. So now we can move forward into PFS and ultimately a decision to build, confident that high-grade core is consistently big as it's been modelled.
And looking at that PFS due out in the fourth quarter this year of 2024, how on track are you to achieve this?
Oh, we're well on track. We're very confident that will definitely be out in December quarter.
Okay, and then when do you expect the definitive feasibility study to be complete?
Oh, look, we'll consider our options. I think our focus after the PFS will be getting the application in under that fast track approval bill if it has been passed into law. We'll be considering funding options in anticipation of a 6-month turnaround on the application, and during all that time, we'll certainly be doing detailed engineering, whether it culminates in a DFS or a decision to build. We'll work through that as time moves on.
And Damian, you just mentioned the fast track approval bills. You spoke about it in your slide as well. You also made a comment that on the possibility to have the permits by this time next year. I just wanted to get how likely is that going to be achieved?
Well, based on the current version of the bill, and we've only had the one reading in Parliament, it is very clear that the intent is to advance projects of regional and national significance with a firm timeline and certainty of an outcome. Doesn't mean that we bypass any of the existing laws governing environment or heritage or anything else. We just have to ensure that we meet those standards and ensure that our application is thorough and complete so that the expert panel has every reason to give us our approvals. It is what it is. When we see it in the second reading, we'll have more certainty about the structure of the application.
And Damian, just the final question, based on your understanding of the wider Bendigo-Ophir gold project, can you provide some colour around the likely areas of potential upside for expanding your total MRE, both in terms of RAS and other satellite deposits?
Oh, look, they're still open and down plunge, as we call it. Admittedly, the topography is getting increasing, so therefore the depth. And we've got plenty of targets in between those, so we're still, a lot of this is a blind discovery, particularly at RAS. And of course, we've still got the other 20, 25 kilometres of strike that is underexplored. We have soil sampling programs completed. We've got more planned for the summer and see what they deliver.
Damian, thank you so much for your time today. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to hearing you soon.
Thank you, Pete.